Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had an awesome weekend with your loves. I find people really interesting, and I've always been a keen observer. It's definitely something that I've had my whole life. I'm the youngest of a big family, and so I had many people that would go before me, and I could observe my brothers and sisters becoming parents and getting married and all of those life milestones. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone asked this woman that I was listening to who she admires. And her answer was that she admires people that are just normal people, but that inspire her. And I agreed with that so much because for me, the reason I admire people is not because of their celebrity status or money or fame. I admire people that are willing to do work on themselves and transform and then turn around and share it with other people. So I love having these deep spiritual convos with like-minded people. And today I am speaking with a fellow seeker, John Paul. So welcome, John Paul.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited. So a couple weeks ago, so you've been on my Instagram, like we've been on Instagram together for a minute, meaning I don't know how long it's been, like a few months or whatever. But I clicked on your page a couple weeks ago and I was looking at some of your videos and I played one of your videos with your music and it literally just struck me and I just started crying. And it hit me to my core. And so I want you to kind of just tell me for a minute, what do you want people to know? What is you like what are your messages for the world?
It's a really great question, and I'm really glad that my music had that impact on you. First of all, because that's really my one of my number one motivations is to impact the world and to inspire people. So I'm really thankful that you received that. And my biggest message or messages, I would say, are that I hope to uplift people and help people to see the blessings in every situation, despite the circumstances. Despite how it may look on the outside, there's always a blessing, there's always a lesson to be learned. And that's a big theme for my own life. And that's something I think that comes out in my music and also my coaching business as well. So,
Awesome. I love that.
yeah.
So have you been playing music your whole life and because I know you play the guitar, right?
Yes.
And you
Yeah, I've been playing music my whole life. It's definitely part of who I am. It's something I grew up with. I'm the middle of three boys, and we all got the musical genes. And I believe, one of my biggest influences for my music was my father. But ironically, he wasn't actually there physically growing up, but he was what you could call a musical prodigy. And I think we received a lot of our musical talent from him. And so my mother always encouraged music. And so I took piano lessons when I was 5 and just kind of went from there. Played drums for a little while in high school, and I got into guitar in my teenage years too. But my main instrument has always been voice. And so, singing has always been my biggest passion. And now I write songs on guitar and back myself up with a guitar. Um, so, I can so I can sing over the top of it and use that as a way to convey the message and the feeling of the music.
Yes, I love that. So, with your songs, they're very spiritual. Like your messages are, to me, your messages are conversations that I would have with people. And that's what I love so much about it. And I think maybe that's why it hit me so hard is, you hear music, you'll hear good music, you'll hear high vibration music. And I'm also really paying attention a lot more to the vibrations of music and tones and notes, as opposed to what I have in the past. This year, of course, or last year, has really shaken a lot of people to start thinking of things on a deeper level. And so when I listened to your music, it's like you're having a deep spiritual conversation with the world, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And there's intention in everything that I do. When it comes to music, especially, I feel like that's one of my greatest gifts that I have to offer. And everything is vibration, right? So I really take that into account when I am playing music and also creating music. I definitely tap into this space where I become kind of like a channel for this information, and it just comes through me in song and melody. And another really interesting thing that you may not know, and I find it interesting because you said that you really felt the music and you really tuned into the feeling and the vibration, is that I actually play in 432 hertz. So I'm not sure if you're aware
Yeah.
of that frequency, but
Yes, that is amazing.
yeah. So that's what I play, and I write all my songs and I record my music in that frequency. And for those who don't know, 432 hertz is a harmonic of the Schumann resonance, which is basically the resonance of the earth. And since we are connected to the earth vibrationally, our bodies actually resonate at a similar frequency, a similar harmonic to that of the earth. So 432 hertz is um, is supposed to be a more harmonious frequency, harmonious vibration, and it resonates with our actual electromagnetic fields more easily than the standard tuning, which is actually 440 hertz these days. But
So
yeah,
you mean with your average songs that you hear like on the radio or in like celeb status would be 440 more so? Is that what you mean?
right,
Okay.
right,
Which is
yeah,
what?
440 hertz. It's 440 hertz is actually, it was actually changed after World War II. 432 hertz was always concert pitch, is what you could call it. But for centuries, that was kind of like the standard. Of course, there were a lot of variables because it wasn't as accurate, but 440 is actually uh, is actually something that some people believe that it was created as the standard tuning in order to influence people in a in a, I guess, more of a negative way,
Yeah.
because after World War II it was created that way. And so that's something that some people believe out there, is that actually that frequency is is used, it was used kind of by the Germans. And so it's actually one of those frequencies that doesn't resonate as easily with the body, so it can actually have negative impact on the human being
Mhm.
who is receiving it. So, and if you listen to 440 hertz, then you can, it's the standard radio tuning. You can kind of tell when you listen to that versus 432, you can kind of tell there's a little more sharpness there with the 440. So to me, it actually feels like it's kind of piercing. It's a little more piercing to my energy system, whereas 432 hertz feels a lot more calming and relaxing.
Yeah.
So you know some you know some people don't notice that, some do, but uh, it definitely is something that myself and several people that I know, you know, we really take that seriously because, like we talked about, vibration is everything. So,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. That makes so much sense as to why when I was listening to your music, it just hit my heart so much. And I don't, that doesn't happen very often to where I just start crying. And I mean, of course, sometimes it does when I hear something, but like this weekend, I had a beautiful child that was here visiting and she was singing, and it was hard for me to not start crying, but which would make sense because, of course, that was a beautiful vibration as well. But you know what this reminds me of is this is fascinating because there is the new Trolls movie. It's not new anymore, but it the last one, the most recent one. It was
yeah,
actually all about this. I don't know if you ever saw it, but when I was watching it, so many times people think that this stuff is it's all fake, it's not real, it's just a cartoon or it's just a movie or whatever. And there's a lot of messaging that really is real. And that was the main point to the whole movie, is that there were music vibrations that were good or not good for the people in the village, in the Trolls.
mm,
It's so fascinating. But I mean, they've done studies on this. So I know a lot of people would go not be open to this and go, oh, that's silly or that's out there. But they've done studies with like plants with different vibrations of music, how some killed the plants and some the plants flourished, right? On the living
right,
beings.
yeah,
So that is awesome. I love it so much. So then,
right,
um, so I went to your Instagram and then I was looking at your page and I saw one of your posts that I also want to talk about because it really struck me as well. It was the one that had the side by side pictures of you from 2015 and then 2020, current day at the time. And
hmm,
they were so different, and you did a little post about your transformation. So I want you to talk a little bit about your transformation and your awakening, and what put you on that journey. What made you go from such a drastic shift?
yeah. That's a big story. I can I can see if I can kind of narrow it down and shorten it down a little bit for you. But transformation has been a big part of my journey, my entire life. But most recently, in these last 5 years, um, it's played a huge role because, well, 5 years ago, well, it's 2021 now, so it's a little over 5 years ago when I took that picture. I was at this concert, and I was, you know, on some sort of psychedelic, substance, and I was actually in this really dark place, and that was a result of a lot of pain from my past that I was carrying around. And a lot of that started when I was a kid, not growing up with my father, um, him not being around, and then having two abusive stepfathers growing up, who were both psychologically and physically abusive. And then I ended up getting married, and that was almost a 7-year marriage. And it was a huge learning experience for me, but it definitely was not a healthy relationship. And after we divorced and went our separate ways, uh, all of that pain from my past kind of came to haunt me, so to speak. And the pain of the divorce, and I had this opportunity to be the person that I truly wanted to be, but I didn't know how to be that person. So I, I went down this dark path of substance abuse and, addiction. And this lasted for 2 or 3 years. And 2015, at the end of that year, that was toward the end of my journey on that dark path of addiction. And in 2016, early 2016, the universe got my attention. And if you've been in this situation, you probably can relate, but things tend to happen in threes when it comes to the workings of the divine. And so three different separate things happened all in a row that kind of shook me to my core. And one of those things was that my uncle was diagnosed with liver failure. And it was because of drinking and pharmaceuticals that he was taking. And being on a similar path, with drinking and everything like that, I realized that I didn't want to end up like him. He was given 2 weeks, uh, from 2 weeks to 2 months to live. And it just kind of brought me back to reality. And it made me ask myself, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I numbing myself so much and really punishing my body so much? And so and then a couple other things happened, and it all kind of came to a head. And I I made the decision to leave my old life behind and start on this new path. I had a spiritual mentor that came into my life, and I decided cold turkey, I'm just going to drop all these addictions and start walking in this other direction. Um, Easier said than done, obviously. You know, I one of the things that really helped me early on was I started meditating every single day. And it, I'm sure you've done quite a bit of meditation yourself, but when you meditate, the thing that I started to realize was that I really, I wasn't, up until that time, I wasn't okay with being present in this, reality, in the reality that I was living in. I wasn't okay with it. But the more I meditated, the more I started to really enjoy it and find peace and comfort in that reality, the reality that meditation provided for me. It started to really calm my nervous system and help me to be more present. And so I did that, and I started praying every day as well, and doing healing work, working through my emotional issues and clearing out pain from the past, um, trauma work, all that kind of stuff, inner child work, and which inner child work has been one of the biggest blessings to my life, and it's helped me transform and heal probably the most out of all the work that I've done. Um, and yeah, what's interesting is the more I did that work, I realized that I didn't have to hold on to that pain, that I could actually be my authentic self, and that I could be okay with being me. And so I was able to let go of a lot of that hurt from the past and really move on. And yeah, so that's kind of how my journey started back in 2016. And that ties into the music too, um, because up until that point, I always had an issue writing music. Um, it just never really clicked for me. But once I got on that spiritual path and I started healing from all that trauma and pain, I started channeling this pure, this pure essence, and it was really me reclaiming my own innocence, you know, by doing that work that allowed me to start creating music that I was actually happy with, and it actually brought me joy, and it inspired me, and I was hoping that it would inspire others, and that's been my mission with my music since. But since then, it's been an uphill climb. Hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it.
Wow, that's awesome. I love how you say that to people, how you show that, hey, this is where I was. I think that's what I love so much about that post is, there's teachers out there, there's people in churches and religion, there's people that are influencers or, different spiritual teachers who really aren't willing to go, hey, look, this is where I was. I was, on psychedelics. I was spiritually empty. I was in this place because sometimes people are afraid of that. They're afraid for others to see their vulnerable side and to see that they are imperfect, right? And a lot of times people look at someone like, for example, where you're at now and go, oh my gosh, I'm not like John Paul because he's like, look at him. He's got it all figured out. He's spiritual. He's a musician. He's talented. He's good looking. He's got this beautiful girl by his side. His life is great, right? But when you can say, hey, look, this is where I was, and you can meet people on that bridge. For me, it was, I had learned so much in my own life, and I was looking at a lot of these spiritual teachers, and I knew in my core that this was my calling, was to get out there and share myself with the world and tell my story and tell people the things that I had learned that had helped me so much. But I was very intimidated, and I was holding back for quite a while because I was comparing myself to Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, these different people where I would go, wow, I'm not where they're at. I'm not at their level. Who am I to teach people? Because I know I've been a total shit show in my life, right? And so for me
Right.
to get out there and say that, it was hard. I resisted. So that's what I love so much about you being authentic and going, hey, look, I don't even know who that guy is now. When I look at him, maybe you said that, maybe you didn't, but in a sense, you were like, this is where I was, and I've learned a lot, and I've come a long ways. And I think it's so important for people to see that, because they can relate to that. So wherever they're at, whether they're, you know, in the depths of their stuff, or whether they've, you know, they're going on their journey or just beginning, it's beautiful, because anyone can choose to step on that path and start moving forward, right?
Right. Yeah. It all just starts with a decision, you know, just have to decide and be hyper focused and commit to the path, you know. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's
Yeah.
available for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And being authentic online is not easy either, you know. Like like I haven't always been just, you know, sharing, you know, my transformations along the way so easily. um, you know, it took a while for me to get there, because it is intimidating. It's intimidating seeing all these experts, you know, and watching them and seeing them as kind of putting them on a pedestal in a way. But what's interesting is someone asked me yesterday, they messaged me and they asked me, so how do you stay zen all the time? You know, like what's that? How do you do that? Do you ever find yourself wavering? You know, like, is that because and I was like, what do you mean? You know, like, and I think people see people like you and I who are being authentic, and we're, you know, we're focusing on offering and contributing to the world what we have to share, and our gifts, and they think that life is just perfect, but it's just not the case. And you
Yeah.
know, as far as staying zen all the time, I really don't think that's realistic for anyone, unless you're a, you know, a Shaolin monk or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah. And if
so.
people say they're zen all the time, I'd raise an eyebrow to that. And you're right, unless they're, because there are those certain people who are a freak of nature. They've done a lot of work. Maybe they're an avatar and they're you know, like Jesus or Buddha or Gandhi. But the rest of it, you know, when you said that, how do I stay zen all the time? It's like, I don't stay zen all the time. I still get mad. I still fight with my husband sometimes. I still, you know, yell at my kids every once in a while. I still stumble, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
like?
that's it's part of the human condition. You know, you can't, you know, because I don't think we're here to transcend our humanness. And I feel like a lot of people on the spiritual path believe that that's what being spiritual is about. But it's not about transcendence, it's about embodying all the aspects of who you are, your human aspect, your higher self, you know, you know, and not neglecting your physical vessel. You know, that's another thing. People, and so there's a lot of confusion out there, but we just do the best we can, and we we roll with the punches, and we learn to balance and create harmony as much as we can. And you know, we all fail, and if we're not failing, then we're not really trying. I think if we're not failing, we're not really putting ourselves out of our comfort zone. So, you know, someone said that success is a product of failing as many times as possible. And I think that applies to all areas of life, not just, you know, entrepreneurship, but spirituality, you know, relationships, whatever it may be. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's a really good indicator to look at and go, hey, am I better? Am I doing better now than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? You know, I talk to a lot of people in coaching and they'll go, I just want to get back to, you know, where I was at this point. And I'm like, really? Do you really though? You know, because for me, I would, I'm 40, I'm almost 45. I do not want to go back to 40. I don't want to go back to 30. I don't want to go back to 20. Now, did I look, you know, did I have less wrinkles, less gray hair, less whatever back then? Yeah, of course. But to me, you couldn't pay me enough to go back to 30 years old or 20 years old because it's not about youth. It's about the journey and what I've learned in this lifetime. And when I look at that 20-year-old, it was like, honey, you were in a space where you were very lost, you know? And so I think that that's a good indicator. It's not about perfection, but it's like, hey, am I going in the right direction? Right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the hard part is not comparing ourselves to other people, you know. So, like you said, only compare yourself, only ever compare yourself to yourself. And
Yeah.
are you making progress? Are you evolving? Are you growing? And I think that's one of the, you know, main points of life is growth. So, you know,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
we're we're all, I think we're all in perfect timing too. It's another thing that I find myself having trouble remembering from time to time is that I'm right on time where I'm supposed to be. I'm not behind, you know,
Yeah.
and everything is for a reason. And although I may want something to happen really fast and now, it's there's a process and there's you know steps to get there. So
Absolutely. So true. So you mentioned
yeah,
something. You said that you went through your divorce, and at that point, it was, to me, it was like, you know, that was a moment that cracked you open to where now you were really looking at your life because you were going through a lot of pain. Divorce is super painful, right? And then you started
yeah,
to delve back into your journey, and it took you further back, like into your childhood, and what did you have that you needed to or wanted to look at to start to heal from, right?
mm-hmm.
That's really how my awakening happened, was me going through my divorce. It was like it cracked me open to where now I was really looking at my life, and that's when I started on my journey. It would be many years before I would start to get it together because I was spinning for many years, but it was the catalyst to really bring me on that journey. So now you found new love since. So tell me a little bit about your beautiful Heather that you have now. Tell me about that. So what is that for you?
Well, it's I can just say that it is a connection that I couldn't have planned, and that is really out of this world. It's something I've never experienced before, and I think it's really a product of several things, but one of those is being on this spiritual path. And we met back in 2017, and a few months before we met, I made a love list. And on that love list, I had all the qualities of the person that I desired to you know connect with. And it was a one page front and back, and you know they weren't physical characteristics, they were just all qualities and values and interests and things like that. And so I met Heather around a campfire, actually, at this gathering on this farm in southern Illinois. And she's from Kansas City, I'm from Tennessee, and we just happened to both be there at the same time. And one of our friends was, and he's a friend now, but I didn't know him then. But he was playing a song, and during the song, he had everyone sing along and everything. And there was this part where he said, "Okay, now turn to the person next to you and sing this," you know. And the so I turned next to me, and Heather was next to me, and we both looked at each other, and that was the first time we actually connected, like our eyes met. And the line of the song was, "You can be love, you can be love." And so it was just interesting how that happened. That was how we connected first. And then after the campfire songs were over, we sat around the fire and talked for a little bit, and we instantly went deep into a place that most of the time it would take 30 minutes probably to get there with a stranger. But it felt like we were so much on the same wavelength that we just instantly knew each other. And there was this really strange but beautiful connection that we had. And it was like it was like being close to her felt like I was coming home. So it was this feeling of deep sense of peace and home. So it was something I never felt before. And I just remember I really enjoyed her hugs. And we would see each other around that around the event, around the farm that weekend. And we would just hug because we just connected. And there was this it was like this deep friendship that just developed out of nowhere. And we were just instant friends. And yeah, so I mean, I could go deeper into it, but a
Wow.
lot of things happened, and the stars aligned. The moon and the sun aligned too because it was a solar eclipse. But um, yeah, it was quite a meeting, and it was quite the event. And later on in the weekend, I was playing my music on stage, and this was actually the first time I had ever shared my own music since I had my spiritual awakening. And she actually came. She heard me, and she was at her campsite. She heard me on stage, and she like started running toward the stage because she was like, "That's got to be him," because we had talked about it, and I told her I was going to be playing that night, and she wanted to be there. And she described it as like this voice of an angel, and she felt like drawn to the stage. And what's interesting is she got to the stage, and she sat in the front, right in the middle. And it seemed like, from my perspective, that things really started closing in, and like she was the only one in the audience. And we actually stepped into this really weird portal. I don't know what it was. It was a vortex. And uh, I started forgetting the lines. I started forgetting how to play the song.
Are you serious?
And
Good
yeah,
job,
it
Heather.
was it was a crazy experience. Like, definitely out of this world. The angels were singing, and we were in this vortex, and we didn't realize it until later, but we both had the same kind of a similar experience. It was a few months later that we realized that we were in some sort of vortex when that happened. And like, there was this, she had this heart opening experience, and I was like sweating and doing all, like, things were going crazy. I was forgetting my lyrics. And um, yeah, since then, we haven't stopped talking. And now we live together. And yeah, I moved to Kansas City, and now we live together. And it's definitely been a journey. It's been challenging, but it's been the most beautiful relationship I've ever been a part of too. So
Wow, I love that so much. So I love that you guys live in KC because that's where I'm from. So several people that listen to this with my friends, my family, some of my childhood friends will hear this. And so shout out to KC. um, but one thing I love so much about what you said is when you said that when you met Heather, it was like something that you had never experienced before. And this is a common denominator. When people meet that person that is whatever you want to call it, whether it's your person or your soulmate or your North Star, it is unlike something you've never experienced before. I mean, that's such a beautiful story. What a beautiful way to meet someone where you look in each other's eyes and you sing, "You Can Be Love." That's so amazing. So beautiful. Um, Me and my hubby, ours was not as romantic as yours. But when I walked into his life, we were both in similar spaces. Done we had both gotten to a place where we were ready to call something more deep and real into our life. And
mhm.
when I walked in and met him, the night I met him, it's hard to even describe, but it was like coming home. And when you said that, it's like, yeah,
Mm.
that's what I say. That's how I describe Danny to people, is to he's my home, you know? And so doesn't mean we haven't had times where, you know, we've had to get through, but it was like we that's what made it even more painful when we would fight, or, you know, when we would have these different hard spaces in our marriage, because we had a lot of stuff to work through and we hadn't done a lot of work on ourselves like it
Mm.
sounds like you and Heather had. We were just getting started. We had a lot of trauma to heal still, but it was almost like, it's like you can't leave if you're home, like you can't go anywhere, right? And so
Yeah.
but I love that you said it's unlike something you've never experienced, and it's also like coming home, because it's like, yes, you know, absolutely. I love that. That's so awesome. Very
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah, and I'm really glad that you've met that person as well for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's it's interesting because you know, I know that, so with Danny and I, we had these parallel lives and it just wasn't the right time for us to meet, you know. And
Hmm.
we, so many times with people that I'm working with, they want that so badly. They want that deep relationship. They want that person that is, it's like a sacred relationship, you know. And um but they have to be willing. They have to be willing to be okay on their own. And that's what I really find, is that, you know, so many times people are afraid to be alone. And I literally call this, like, you've got like this invisible relationship circle in front of you. It's like this energetic space. And if you're not willing to be strong enough to let people go and stand strong on your own, then it's blocking you from calling that person in. but it sounds like that's what you
Yeah.
did. And for the first time in my life, that's what I did, because I was definitely searching for validation, and I finally was strong enough to like let that go and stand alone long enough to walk into his life. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. You know, there's a theme in the spiritual community that says you've got to love yourself first before you can love others. And I think that part of that is true. Yeah, like you need to love yourself completely, as you need to love yourself so that you can attract that perfect partner. You can still love others and not love yourself, but uh, it's never usually a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, that's how it that's how it happened for me. I After all the work that I had done, I felt ready and I called it in. So I also I took command of the ship too,
Yeah.
and not so so I think that had a part to play in it as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Love it.
proclaiming it.
Hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you for hours. I love it. Deep, soulful convos. But my last question for you is, what do you want? What do you want people in the world to know? What's your message for them?
What do I want people in the world to know? I think my message to people is that you don't have to hold on to guilt or shame or pain. Forgiveness is always there for you. um, you can release yourself from the burdens of the past, and you can transform your entire life. And when you do that, everything becomes much more clear. Life takes on a whole new meaning, and there's a beauty that you experience that is unlike any other experience in life. And that's available for everyone. So um, yeah, if I could send a message, it would be that. And I would say that there's always hope in every situation. And I'm the eternal optimist, so I see hope in all things. And no matter how grim life looks, there's always a way forward, and just keep moving forward and allow yourself to feel your feelings. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned over the past few years is feeling and being present with myself, feeling all my emotions and my feelings, and and being okay with just being me. Um, yeah.
Mm, love that so much. Thank you for being here and sharing your light with the world. Love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jen.
Absolutely. Anytime. We'll have more deep spiritual convos. I know some people might be like, what are they talking about? Some people will hear us and they'll understand, talking about megahertz, or yeah, is it megahertz? HZ.
Our herds, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, everyone, have a great day and see you next week. Bye for now.